I'm 70, never married, no kids, and the reasons why. Hello, and welcome to my first post. If you're here, there's a good chance you've stumbled across this topic because it resonates with you in some way, or at least piqued your curiosity. Maybe you're someone like me, living life a little differently than most. Or perhaps you're reflecting on your own journey and wondering how others have navigated the road less traveled. I'm 70 years old, never married, and I don't have kids. To some, that might seem unconventional. To me, it's just my life. A life filled with its own share of choices, challenges, and lessons. Today, I want to share my story. Not because it's extraordinary, but because it's honest. And if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that honesty has a way of connecting us all. So let's dive in. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. A different path chosen early. I often reflect on my younger years and wonder if, deep down, I always knew I would live a life that diverged from the traditional path. At the time, I didn't consciously decide to remain single or child-free. Like most young people, I imagined my future unfolding much like the ones I saw around me. A loving spouse, children playing in the backyard, and a home filled with the rhythms of family life. But as I grew older, life started taking me in a different direction, one step at a time. When I was in my 20s, the world felt wide open, full of possibilities and adventures waiting to be discovered. I was part of a generation that saw societal shifts reshaping the way we lived and thought about life. The 1970s brought with it waves of change, civil rights movements, feminism, and an emphasis on personal freedom. It was a time when young people were questioning traditional roles and exploring new ways to live authentically. In that environment, the idea of settling down early felt limiting to me. There was so much I wanted to see and do, so much I wanted to learn about myself and the world. At first, I told myself that marriage and family could wait. I wanted to establish my career, travel, and find out who I was before sharing my life with someone else. But with each passing year, the urgency others felt about marriage simply didn't resonate with me. I dated, of course, and even fell in love a few times, but I never felt that pull to settle down that seemed to come so naturally to others. Looking back, I can see that my path wasn't just about timing or external circumstances. It was also about who I was at my core. I valued independence deeply, perhaps more than most. I was drawn to the idea of carving out my own space in the world, free from the expectations and obligations that often come with traditional family roles. This wasn't a rejection of love or connection, but rather a pursuit of a different kind of fulfillment. I wanted to explore what it meant to be me, unfiltered and unbound. Of course, this choice wasn't without its challenges. In my 30s, when many of my peers were getting married and starting families, I started to feel a subtle pressure, sometimes spoken, sometimes implied. Why haven't you settled down yet? People would ask, their curiosity tinged with concern. At family gatherings, relatives would nudge me gently, suggesting that it was time to find someone. Friends would ask me if I wasn't worried about being alone in the future, as if a lack of marriage meant a lack of companionship or support. I didn't have an easy answer to give them because I wasn't sure myself. Was I simply waiting for the right person, or was I intentionally carving out a different path? The truth lay somewhere in between. I wasn't opposed to the idea of marriage or children, but I also wasn't willing to settle for a life that didn't feel like mine. I wasn't in a rush to fit into a mold, even if that mold was one society celebrated. And yet, there were moments of doubt. When a close friend announced their engagement or a colleague shared pictures of their newborn, I'd feel a twinge of longing, not necessarily for what they had, but for the sense of belonging that seemed to come with it. There were nights when I'd lie awake wondering if I was making the right choice, if I'd look back one day and feel the weight of regret. But those moments were fleeting. quickly replaced by the quiet satisfaction of knowing I was living authentically, even if it didn't look like what others expected. Now, at 70, I see my life as a series of deliberate choices that, when taken together, created a path uniquely my own. It wasn't always easy, and it certainly wasn't always clear, but it was mine. A life shaped by curiosity, independence, and a deep desire to honor the person I've always been. I didn't set out to defy tradition or challenge norms, but in staying true to myself, I inadvertently did both. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd tell him this. It's okay to take the road less traveled. It's okay to choose a life that doesn't fit the mold. Because at the end of the day, what matters most isn't whether your life looks like everyone else's. What matters is that it feels like yours. 2. The relationships that weren't meant to be. When I think about my relationships over the years, I often feel a bittersweet mixture of gratitude and regret. I've loved and been loved, but somehow the timing or the connection was never quite right. It's easy to look back now, decades later, and analyze why things didn't work out. But in the moment, I was often left wondering what I was doing wrong or why I couldn't seem to find that elusive mutual spark. In my younger years, I had no shortage of opportunities to date. I met people at work, through friends, and even at the occasional community event. There were wonderful moments, long conversations, laughter over shared meals, and the flutter of excitement that comes with getting to know someone new. I can still remember the first woman I truly cared for. She was smart, funny, and had a way of lighting up a room. We dated for nearly a year, and I thought she might be the one. But as time went on, it became clear that we wanted different things. She dreamed of a big family in a bustling city, while I was drawn to a quieter, more introspective life. Neither of us was willing to compromise, and so we parted ways. That pattern repeated itself in various forms over the years. Sometimes I was the one who couldn't fully commit. Other times, I was the one left behind. There were relationships where I felt deeply invested, only to realize the feelings weren't reciprocated. And there were times when someone wanted more from me than I could give. One of the hardest lessons I've learned is that love isn't always enough. Relationships require alignment, not just of hearts, but of values, goals, and lifestyles. Without that, even the strongest attraction can falter. It's a painful realization, especially when you care deeply for someone, but know in your gut that the relationship isn't sustainable. Looking back, I can see that part of the issue was my own hesitation. I was fiercely independent and often hesitant to let someone into the most vulnerable parts of my life. I feared losing myself in a relationship, of becoming so intertwined with another person that I'd lose sight of who I was. At the time, I didn't recognize it as fear. I told myself I was simply waiting for the right person. But now, I understand that some of those walls I built kept people at arm's length, even when I didn't intend to. There were also societal pressures that shaped my dating life, whether I realized it or not. Growing up in a time when traditional gender roles were still strongly emphasized, I often felt unsure of how to navigate relationships in an evolving world. Women were gaining more independence, and rightly so, but the shifting dynamics left me feeling uncertain about my role. Should I be the provider, the protector, the equal partner? These questions lingered in my mind, often unspoken but always present. In the end, none of my relationships led to marriage. Some ended amicably, while others left me with lingering heartache. But each one taught me something about myself, what I value, what I need, and what I'm capable of giving. And for that, I'm grateful. 3. Career over family. For much of my life, my career was my anchor. It gave me purpose, structure, and a sense of accomplishment that I found deeply fulfilling. But it also became a double-edged sword, pulling me away from personal relationships and into a world of long hours, demanding deadlines, and constant travel. I worked in a field that required my full attention and energy. My days were filled with meetings, projects, and problem solving, leaving little room for anything or anyone else. At the time, I saw this as a necessary trade off. I told myself that I was building a foundation for a future where I could provide for a family, should I ever have one. But the truth is, I thrived on the work itself. I enjoyed the challenges, the camaraderie with colleagues, and the satisfaction of a job well done. As the years went by, my career became not just what I did, but who I was. It was my identity, my security, and my way of contributing to the world. I poured myself into it, often at the expense of personal connections. There were nights when I stayed late at the office instead of going on a date. Weekends were spent catching up on work rather than nurturing friendships. At the time, it felt like the right choice, or at least a justified one. But in hindsight, I can see how my career became both a refuge and a barrier. Part of me wonders if I used my career as an excuse to avoid the uncertainties of relationships. Work was predictable. Relationships were not. In my career, I knew what was expected of me, and I knew how to succeed. In relationships, the rules were less clear, and the outcomes were far more uncertain. It was easier to focus on what I could control than to risk the vulnerability that comes with love. Yet, I don't regret the time I devoted to my work. It allowed me to achieve things I'm proud of and gave me a sense of independence that has served me well throughout my life. It also provided financial stability, which has been a blessing in my later years. But I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments when I wondered what might have been if I'd made different choices. There's a delicate balance between ambition and connection, and I often leaned too far toward the former. I've come to understand that while careers can be deeply rewarding, they can't replace the intimacy and joy that come from human relationships. It's a lesson I've learned over time, and one that I hope others can take to heart earlier in their journeys. As I sit here today, reflecting on my life, I recognize that my career was both a source of strength and a reminder of the trade-offs we all face. For me, the pursuit of professional success came with sacrifices, but it also brought growth, resilience, and a sense of purpose that continues to sustain me. And for that, I'm grateful. 4. Shifting perspectives on parenthood. Parenthood is one of those things society often presents as a universal milestone, a rite of passage that defines a complete life. For me, however, it wasn't something I ever felt strongly drawn to. That's not to say I didn't think about it or wonder what it might be like to raise children of my own. I did. But the thought always came with a sense of uncertainty and hesitation that I couldn't quite shake. When I was younger, I assumed that having children would naturally follow marriage, like steps on a staircase. But as I moved through life, marriage itself became elusive, and with it, the idea of children. Still, I often asked myself, was this something I truly wanted, or was it just something I thought I should want? The answer was never clear. I've always enjoyed being around children. My nieces, nephews, and the kids of close friends have brought a special kind of joy into my life. There's something magical about seeing the world through their eyes, witnessing their curiosity and wonder. But raising a child of my own felt like an entirely different proposition. The weight of that responsibility loomed large in my mind. I knew deep down that it was a lifelong commitment, one that would require immense energy, patience, and sacrifice. I wasn't sure I was equipped to handle it, especially given my focus on career and independence. There was also a part of me that feared the unknowns of parenthood. Would I be a good parent? Would I have the emotional capacity to give a child the love and stability they deserved? What if I failed them in some way? These questions lingered in my mind, and I didn't have easy answers. It wasn't that I didn't admire parents or value the role they played in shaping the next generation. I did. But I couldn't picture myself in that role, at least not in a way that felt authentic. As I grew older, The window for parenthood began to close, and I found myself reflecting on what that meant for my life. Would I regret not having children? Would I feel an emptiness that nothing else could fill? To my surprise, the answer was no. Instead of regret, I felt a sense of peace. I realized that while I might not have children of my own, I could still contribute to the lives of others in meaningful ways. Whether it was mentoring younger colleagues, volunteering in my community, or simply being a supportive friend or family member, there were countless ways to nurture and give back. Even now, at 70, I occasionally wonder what it would have been like to have a child call me dad, to watch them grow, and to share in their joys and struggles. But I also recognize that parenthood is just one path among many. My life may not include that particular chapter, but it is full of other experiences and relationships that have brought me fulfillment in their own unique ways. 5. Reflections on Aging in Solitude. Aging is a journey filled with both beauty and complexity. As I approach my 8th decade of life, I find myself reflecting deeply on what it means to grow older without the traditional support structures of a spouse or children. There are moments of quiet contentment and moments of profound loneliness, and I've come to accept both as part of the human experience. One of the greatest challenges of being single at my age is navigating solitude. When you don't have a partner to share your daily life with, the quiet can sometimes feel overwhelming. Holidays in particular can be difficult. While others gather with their families, I often find myself spending those days alone or in the company of friends. It's not that I don't enjoy my own company. I do. Over the years, I've developed a deep appreciation for solitude and the peace it brings. But even the most independent among us crave connection from time to time. That said, solitude is not the same as loneliness. I've learned to distinguish between the two. Loneliness is the ache of wanting companionship, while solitude is the choice to embrace your own presence. In my case, solitude has become a source of strength. It's in those quiet moments that I've been able to reflect on my life, find clarity, and cultivate a sense of gratitude for all that I have. Still, there are times when I wish I had someone to share the small, everyday joys with, a partner to sit beside me on the porch during a summer sunset, or to share a laugh over a cup of coffee in the morning. There are days when I miss the idea of having a companion who knows me intimately, who understands my quirks and fears without needing an explanation. But I've come to realize that such longing doesn't diminish the life I've built. It's simply a part of being human. I've also had to confront practical concerns as I age. Without children, there's no one to step in and help me navigate the challenges of growing older, from managing healthcare decisions to providing emotional support. It's a reality that I think about often, and it's prompted me to take proactive steps, building a strong network of friends, establishing clear plans for my future, and ensuring I have the resources I need to live independently for as long as possible. But aging isn't all about challenges. There's also a profound beauty in this stage of life. I've had the time and space to explore my passions, whether it's gardening, writing, or simply taking long walks in nature. I've developed friendships that are rich and meaningful, built not on obligation, but on mutual respect and care. And I've discovered a sense of self that is deeper and more authentic than anything I knew in my younger years. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life is a tapestry woven from both connection and solitude. While I may not have a traditional family, I've created a life that feels deeply my own, a life filled with love in all its varied and beautiful forms. And for that, I am endlessly grateful. 6. The world today and changing norms. As I sit here reflecting on the world we live in today, I can't help but marvel at how much has changed since I was a young man. The norms that once seemed immovable, marriage by your mid-20s, children shortly after, a life built on a foundation of traditional roles, have been questioned, reshaped, and in many cases, set aside altogether. In some ways, I feel like I've lived through a quiet revolution, one that unfolded not with grand gestures, but through individual choices made by people like me. When I was in my 20s and 30s, there was an expectation that life followed a certain script. Those who deviated from that path were often met with confusion or pity, as if their lives were somehow less valuable because they didn't fit the mold. I felt this firsthand when people would ask me, "Why aren't you married yet?" Or "Don't you want kids?" The assumption was always that something must be wrong, that I was missing out on the only life worth living. But as time went on, I began to notice a shift. Younger generations started questioning those same norms that had once defined success and fulfillment. Marriage rates declined, more people chose to remain child-free, and the idea of a traditional family began to look different from what it had in the past. I watched as people around me made choices that aligned with their own values rather than conforming to societal expectations, and I felt a sense of camaraderie, even across generational lines. Still, I can see how these changes have come with their own challenges. Families today face immense pressures, rising costs of living, economic instability, and the demands of juggling work and parenting in a fast-paced world. I often think about my nieces and nephews who are now raising children of their own. Their lives are a whirlwind of responsibilities, and while I admire their dedication, I also see the toll it takes. On the other hand, I see how the younger generation has embraced the idea that there's no right way to live. They are more open to diverse lifestyles, more willing to challenge outdated ideas, and more focused on finding personal fulfillment. It's a reminder that the world is always evolving and that each of us must navigate it in our own way. For me, these changes have been both reassuring and bittersweet. They validate the choices I made to live life on my own terms, but they also make me you can totally wonder how different things might have been if these norms had shifted earlier in my life. Would I have faced less judgment? Would I have felt freer to embrace my path without hesitation? These are questions I'll never fully answer, but they remind me of the importance of living authentically regardless of societal expectations. 7. Advice for those on a similar path. At 70, I've come to realize that life is less about the choices we make and more about how we embrace those choices. Whether you're single, married, child-free, or raising a bustling family, what matters most is how you live your life, not how it looks to others. This is the most valuable lesson I can share with those who find themselves on a similar path. For those who are older and single, it's natural to wonder if you've missed out on something essential. The world around us often romanticizes traditional milestones, making it easy to feel as though you've fallen short. But let me tell you this, your life is just as meaningful, just as rich, and just as worthy as anyone else's. The beauty of being human is that there is no single blueprint for a fulfilling life. If you ever feel isolated or disconnected, I encourage you to seek out ways to build community. Volunteering has been a lifeline for me. It's given me a sense of purpose and introduced me to people who share my values and interests. Whether it's helping at a local food bank, mentoring young people, or joining a book club, there are countless ways to connect with others and create a sense of belonging. Another piece of advice I'd offer is to focus on what brings you joy. At this stage in life, we've earned the right to prioritize the things that make us happy, whether that's a favorite hobby, time spent in nature, or simply enjoying a quiet cup of coffee in the morning. These small moments of joy are the threads that weave a fulfilling life. It's also important to plan for the future. Without children to rely on, I've had to take proactive steps to ensure my independence as I age. This includes financial planning, organizing my healthcare preferences, and creating a support network of friends and trusted professionals. These practical measures give me peace of mind and allow me to focus on the present. Finally, I'd like to share this. It's never too late to redefine your story. Whether you're 50, 70, or 90, life is still full of possibilities. You can forge new connections, explore new interests, and discover new ways to find meaning. Your past may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. As I look back on my life, I don't see a series of missed opportunities or unfulfilled dreams. Instead, I see a life lived with intention, curiosity, and authenticity. It hasn't been perfect and it hasn't always been easy, but it's been mine. And that, I think, is the greatest success of all. To anyone reading this who feels like their path is different from the norm, I want to say you are not alone. Your life is valuable, your experiences matter, and your story deserves to be told. Let's embrace the road less traveled together and find beauty in the journey wherever it may lead. Conclusion: finding meaning in the road less traveled. As I reflect on the journey that has brought me to this moment, I'm struck by the profound beauty of life's unpredictability. The paths we take, whether they align with society's expectations or veer far from them, are deeply personal, shaped by a myriad of choices, experiences, and circumstances. My life, with its absence of traditional milestones like marriage or children, has been no less meaningful or rich. It has been a journey of self-discovery, growth, and quiet fulfillment. Life has a way of teaching us that there is no single formula for happiness. For some, joy is found in the embrace of a spouse or the laughter of children. For others, it is discovered in solitude, in the freedom to chart their own course. I've learned that fulfillment isn't about checking boxes or meeting expectations. It's about finding peace within yourself and living a life that feels true to who you are. At 70, I feel a profound gratitude for the life I've lived. It hasn't always been easy, and there have been moments of doubt and longing, but those moments have been balanced by an equally powerful sense of contentment and purpose. I've built a life filled with meaningful connections, personal achievements, and moments of deep joy. And while my path may not look like the one I once imagined, it feels authentically mine. To anyone who feels like their life doesn't align with the traditional script, I want to offer this. Your life is your own masterpiece. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's to be beautiful, valuable, and full of meaning. Whether your journey includes a family, a partner, or simply yourself, what matters most is that you live it with intention and an open heart. In the end, we are all travelers on this unpredictable road, learning and growing with every step. And as we move forward, may we find the courage to embrace the lives we've chosen, the wisdom to appreciate the lessons they bring, and the grace to celebrate their unique beauty. Here's to the road less traveled, and to finding meaning in every twist and turn along the way. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching. And here's to living life on your own terms.